My name is Ellie. I am 26 years old, and at the moment I am completely financially independent. I began to acquire this feeling of freedom back in my 20s, when I worked in the field of banking management. My sister, Mia, who is now 24 years old, has just completed a degree in media. She has always been a favorite of our family and has received more support and attention from her parents since childhood. While I was trying to make my way on my own, Mia was surrounded by care and generous gifts. Since childhood, I got used to her being the one who always got the best, fashionable clothes, the latest gadgets, and at the same time was spared from any household chores. I was forced to learn early to rely on myself, earn scholarships, and take care of every dollar I earned. While Mia enjoyed life without financial worries, I focused on my ambitions and plans, although at times it was very difficult not to feel undeservedly sidelined. The real highlight came when my mother, overwhelmed with joy, informed me that she and my father had booked Mia a luxury tour of Europe for a whole month, using my credit card so that the accumulated points could be used to upgrade the class of service. She mentioned it so easily, adding only that, of course, they will refund my money. I was struck by the casual and almost casual tone in which this news was delivered, as if my financial well-being was secondary, and I, in fact, should be happy for my sister. Shocked and betrayed, I decided to confront them, trying to convey to them the seriousness and illegality of their actions. But my fears were met with complete indifference and even some contempt, as if my worries were not worth a damn. I felt that my financial stability and trust were simply ignored. For them, it was just another convenience, not worth deep thought. As a result, I decided to report the transaction as a fraud, which led to serious family conflicts. I sought understanding from my father, cherishing a faint hope that he would be able to offer a more reasonable point of view, perhaps take my side and try to balance the family tension. Unfortunately, my expectations were not fulfilled. My father, with a certain coolness and indifference, reflected my mother's thoughts, as if repeating them without hesitation. He claimed that I was overreacting and that, as an older sister, should show more support towards Mia at this important moment in her life. His words, devoid of any empathy, echoed painfully in my soul. When I approached Mia, hoping that at least she would be able to show some understanding or at least realize the scale of the problem, I came across her carefree joy. She was excited about the upcoming trip, as if she didn't know anything about the storm raging in my soul. Moreover, she thanked me, saying with a sincere smile that it was such a wonderful gift. She took it as a gesture of love and support, as if I had voluntarily arranged this luxurious vacation for her. It all seemed surreal, and for a moment I began to doubt my own feelings. Am I really exaggerating? Perhaps my reaction was too emotional. However, a mixture of disappointment, resentment, and an inner need for justice forced me to act. I decided to contact my credit card company to dispute the charges. But when I outlined my problem, a new shock awaited me. Since my card data had once been transferred to my parents in case of an emergency, the company did not consider it fraud. Now I had a huge debt of $277,700, a completely exhausted credit limit, and a family who thought I was selfish for not wanting to pay for my sister's vacation. I felt betrayed. A deep wound was inflicted by the very people who should have supported and protected me, and I was torn apart by internal conflicts. On the one hand, I wanted to cancel the trip to show my firm position, to make the family realize the consequences of their actions. But I understood that this would lead to an irreparable split between us. On the other hand, I had the idea of just paying off the debt and avoiding all this drama, but it seemed wrong, as if I was letting my loved ones continue to ignore my boundaries. This would set a dangerous precedent for future financial abuses. Doubts plagued me. I didn't know what to do, continue to stand my ground, risking destroying relations with my family, or give in to keep the peace. The feeling of betrayal overwhelmed me. I felt lost, in need of advice and support. Thanks to all those who responded to my story and offered their thoughts and recommendations. Your words made it clear to me that my feelings of anger and resentment were not unfounded, that my actions were justified. Armed with the support of those who listened to me, I took further steps. I contacted the credit card company again, deciding to escalate the situation. I explained the situation in detail, emphasizing that although my parents had access to the card in case of emergency, I had never given permission for such a large-scale and inappropriate use of funds. After lengthy discussions, a company representative agreed to investigate and consider the case as a potential fraud. At the same time, I decided to organize a family call on Zoom, hoping that if we discuss everything openly, in the presence of all participants, it will help us solve the problem. I sincerely hope that my family, faced with the facts, would realize their mistake and we would be able to find a compromise solution. The call was tense from the very beginning. I began by calmly and steadily explaining to my parents the consequences of their actions, from legal issues related to fraud and abuse of trust, to the financial pressure they put on me without my consent. I informed them that I had already reported the fraud to the bank and demanded the immediate cancellation of the trip, hoping that at least this would make them think. However, their reaction was disappointing, although, to tell the truth, I did not expect anything else. My parents were outraged, accusing me of being overly dramatic and trying to ruin Mia's graduation. My mother even stated that I had ruined what was supposed to be a joyful time for the whole family. The situation remained unresolved, and I found myself in a whirlpool of thoughts about my next steps. My parents' words only deepened my doubts, forcing me to reconsider the dynamics of our family relations. Using my credit card to pay for my sister's luxury graduation tour was just the latest link in a long chain of events that clearly demonstrated that my parents, despite their responsibilities to me as their child, believed they had the right to dispose of my resources as their own. Memories of childhood, when they always put Mia on a pedestal, and my achievements often went unnoticed, resurfaced in my mind. I could feel the frustration building in me. Yes, they provided for me, raised me, but it's their duty as parents. This cannot be an excuse for their illegal actions and financial intrusion into my life. During the conversation, I remained calm, although a hurricane of emotions raged inside me. Mia, who had been silent until that moment, suddenly burst into tears and accused me of ruining her special moment, which gave her the dream of a luxurious vacation. She claimed that I had always envied her successes and privileges. Her words hurt, even though I knew they were dictated by emotion. But it also strengthened my resolve. I replied softly but firmly, "Mia, I am sincerely happy for you, proud of your achievements. You deserve to be celebrated. But this tour was not my gift, it was paid from my account without my permission, and this is unacceptable." After that, my father tried to downplay the seriousness of the situation again, saying that since they had access to my emergency card, they thought that everything would be fine, saying that it was just one case. I was stunned by his refusal to admit the obvious, the sum of $277,700. "Dad," I replied, "this is a significant amount. And this is definitely not the emergency that I gave you access to the map for. You can't make such financial decisions without discussing them with me in advance." My words hung in the air as if they had collided with an impenetrable wall. The call ended with an explosion of emotions. My parents were left outraged, Mia was in tears, and I felt completely devastated. Despite the fact that I clearly expressed my position, they refused to cancel the trip, continuing to insist that I was overreacting and promising to refund the money soon. This did not lessen my worries. I could no longer trust their promises. After the conversation, I decided to seek legal advice. A friend of mine, a lawyer, confirmed that my parents' actions were not only illegal, but also illegal, and that I fully have the right to sue them. Although the idea of a lawsuit against the family seemed unthinkable to me, I understood that my rights must be protected. Moreover, I have filed a police report on the unauthorized use of my credit card. The officer who accepted the statement was attentive and tactful, warning that the accusation against family members could destroy our relationship completely. But he confirmed that I have every right to defend my interests. Now I'm faced with a difficult choice. On the one hand, I love my family. The idea of suing them tormented me, but on the other hand, their disregard for my autonomy and financial security inspired deep fears. I understood that if I didn't take decisive action now, this behavior could happen again, and in the future it would be even more difficult for me to defend my rights. In the end, I decided to wait for the results of the investigation of the credit card company and took preventive measures by freezing the account and blocking any further use of the card. This experience was painful, but at the same time instructive. He taught me the importance of establishing and maintaining strong personal boundaries. All this time I have been playing the role of peacemaker in the family, even when it was to the detriment of my interests, but now I realize that I have to protect myself. Although it causes anxiety and discomfort, this newfound assertiveness has given me the strength I lacked before. I finally decided to stand up for myself, firmly stating that I no longer intend to tolerate violations of my trust in this form. This decision was not easy for me, but it became inevitable, given everything that happened. Your support and advice proved to be a real anchor in the storm for me, and I want to sincerely thank everyone who was there when I needed sympathy and understanding so much. This difficult experience helped me realize the importance of boundaries that must be established even with the closest people. As time passed, the situation developed. The investigation of the credit card company ended in my favor. They admitted that the charges were unauthorized and refunded the entire amount, $277,700 deducted from my account. When I found out about this, I felt a great sense of relief, as if a stone that had been weighing on me for a long time had finally fallen off my shoulders. I thought that this was the end of my torment, that justice had been served, but the reality turned out to be much more complicated. When my parents and Mia found out that the trip had been canceled due to a refund, their reaction was furious. My phone was literally bursting with angry calls and messages, each of which was full of accusations and resentments. The most painful message was left by my mother. In a voice message, she bitterly called me a selfish and ungrateful son, adding that I had ruined Mia's dream by turning her long-awaited trip into something impossible. These words cut to the quick. There was not the slightest hint of an admission of their guilt or sympathy for my situation. Mia, in turn, went even further. She posted an emotional video on social media in which she told how her abusive brother ruined her dream of traveling to the prom. The video, full of tears and accusations, quickly spread among our mutual friends and relatives, causing a wave of condemnation against me. Many people began to wonder why I was so harsh with my sister, not giving her the opportunity to enjoy a well-deserved rest. The situation rapidly spiraled out of control, and I realized that I could no longer remain silent. I decided to publicly clarify what really happened. In a detailed and calm message that I posted on my social media, I told the whole truth. My credit card was used without my permission, and I took all possible steps to first settle the matter within the family before contacting the issuing company. I made it clear that this situation was not only a financial but also an emotional shock for me, which I could not leave without consequences. The reaction to my message was mixed. Some expressed shock and support, not understanding how my parents could do this, while others continued to insist that I should have allowed Mia to make the trip, even if it meant admitting fraud. These events have become an instructive lesson for me. I was surprised how many people are willing to turn a blind eye to obvious violations if it helps maintain the illusion of family well-being. But I also realized that my family is far from the only one where boundaries are blurred for the sake of peace, even if it happens to the detriment of justice. A few days later, after the passions had subsided a little, I unexpectedly received a call from my aunt, my mother's sister. She expressed sympathy for my situation and shared family stories with me that I didn't know anything about before. It turns out that my mother has long been known for her financial irresponsibility and tendency to use the resources of loved ones to her advantage. My aunt told me that similar situations had happened before with other family members, but they were always hushed up and somehow avoided in order to avoid conflict. This conversation made me see the problem in a different light. it was not just an isolated incident, but part of a deep, long-rooted pattern of behavior that has been passed down from generation to generation. The realization that I was at the center of this dynamic strengthened my decision to break this vicious circle. I knew I was going to have to make difficult decisions, and one of them was to set hard boundaries with my parents. I needed not only to protect my interests, but also, perhaps, to break this chain of financial abuses that had gone unnoticed for so long. I informed my parents that we needed time to pause our relationship. I explained that I couldn't trust them in the current situation and that I needed time to process everything and come to my senses. I also told Mia that despite my love for her and pride in her success, I feel the need to distance myself for a while. It was painful, but I remained firm in my decision, despite all the family troubles. The realization that my boundaries had been grossly violated gave me the strength to protect myself from future financial abuse. I changed all my passwords and closed the credit card that my parents had access to, opening a new account with another bank to avoid further risks. At the same time, I started seeing a therapist who helped me deal with the emotions that overwhelmed me and learn how to build healthier boundaries in relationships with loved ones. This experience, no matter how painful it felt, opened up unexpected positive sides for me. I have learned to value my well-being more and make decisions based on my own safety and comfort, and not just out of a sense of duty to my family. This process gave me the opportunity to realize that putting myself first is not selfishness, but a necessary step to achieve inner harmony. In addition, this situation brought me closer to my aunt and several cousins who expressed their support. It was a great relief for me to find out that not everyone in my family supports my parents' behavior and understand my position. Family rumors have informed me that my parents are still considering sending Mia on a trip, even if not the one she originally planned. To some extent, this feeling of relief and guilt is intertwined in me. A small part of me still feels a pang of conscience because Mia missed a trip to Europe. However, I try to constantly remind myself that I was not obligated to provide for her wishes, especially in a way that violated my own rights. This internal conflict returns periodically. There are times when I doubt my decision and wondered if I was too harsh. But whenever I remember that overwhelming feeling of betrayal when I found out about the unauthorized use of my card, I firmly convince myself of the correctness of my actions. This experience was a hard lesson for me, but also a significant milestone on the path to personal growth. I realized that self-respect and the ability to say no, even to the closest people, is the key to emotional health. I am learning that love should not put a person in the position of a victim, and that a close relationship cannot be an excuse for trespassing or manipulation. It is important to remember that taking care of yourself is not a weakness, but, on the contrary, a manifestation of strength. It has been about a month since the last update, and I would like to share with you the new events that have occurred during this time. Your support and advice have been invaluable to me, especially in light of the difficult decisions I have had to make. The first thing I want to discuss is the legal side of the issue. After much thought and conversations with my lawyer, I have decided not to bring criminal charges against my parents. It was not an easy decision, and I understand that many of you advise going to court to get justice. However, my lawyer convinced me that since the credit card company had already dropped the charges and refunded the money, bringing a criminal case could be a complicated and expensive process with uncertain chances of success. Instead, we sent an official letter to the parents demanding that they stop any such actions in the future. The letter contained a warning: any further misuse of my financial information will result in immediate legal action. This was a compromise path for me, which allowed me to avoid a devastating trial, but at the same time gave a clear signal that I did not intend to tolerate further violations. The family dynamics have changed a lot during this time. The period when I did not communicate with my parents and Mia turned out to be both difficult and very revealing. It gave me time to reflect on our relationship, as well as the opportunity to focus on myself. Regular therapy sessions have become a source of support and strengthening of my inner strength. Through therapy, I have learned to better understand my emotions and realized the importance of setting healthy boundaries, which is now becoming a priority for me. About a month after I cut off contact with my parents, I received an unexpected email from Mia. Unlike her previous emotional messages, this letter was surprisingly mature. Mia admitted that she thought a lot about the situation and came to realize how wrong our parents' actions were. Mia apologized for her initial reaction and for not supporting me at a time when I particularly needed her support. She admitted that she had long been aware of the presence of favoritism in the family, but had always been afraid to go against this trend, feeling too vulnerable and comfortable to resist the actions of our parents. Her confession touched me, but I decided not to jump to conclusions and act cautiously, reacting with restraint to her words. Nevertheless, her letter became a source of cautious optimism for me. Since then, Mia and I have spoken on the phone several times, and her words seemed to indicate that she was genuinely trying to understand my point of view. These conversations gradually began to restore the connection between us, which had long been lost in the whirlwind of family misunderstandings and tensions. Mia even shared her own experience of interacting with her parents, which, as it turned out, was also not always smooth. Financial irresponsibility, which had seemed normal to her until now, began to worry her more, especially after the canceled trip to Europe. It seems that this incident was a wake-up call not only for me, but also for Mia herself. For the first time, she openly admitted that our parents avoid responsibility for their actions by shifting the blame to others, and that she herself had to deal with the consequences of their decisions more than once. This moment became a turning point in her perception of the situation, and although my parents continued to resist any form of responsibility, Mia began to think that it was time to reconsider her attitude towards their behavior. Meanwhile, my parents tried to contact me several times. Their methods ranged from angry voicemails filled with accusations to emails in which they tried to make me feel guilty. One day, my mother even unexpectedly appeared in my apartment and made a scene in the hallway, shouting and demanding an explanation. It was difficult, but I stood my ground. I refused to engage in conflict and remained true to my decision to distance myself from their manipulations. This turned out to be a necessary step for my peace of mind and safety. The reaction from the extended family was mixed. Some relatives, especially my aunt, who was the first to express support, continued to provide me with invaluable moral assistance. She has become not only an ally for me, but also a real source of strength. My aunt helped me better understand the family roots of many problems by sharing stories that I didn't know about before. Her support strengthened me in my decision, reminding me that sometimes even within the family you need to defend your rights and boundaries. However, other relatives did not share my point of view and continued to put pressure on me, convincing me of the need to reconcile with my parents, using the argument that they are your family. I found this statement depressing, because family is not just a blood relationship, but mutual respect and support. As a result, I had to distance myself from some of these relatives in order to maintain my peace of mind and emotional balance. This period of distance from the family drama gave me space for self-development. I began to focus more on myself and my personal goals. One of these new hobbies was photography, which brought me not only creative satisfaction, but also allowed me to find a new source of joy in life. I've also started spending more time with friends who respect my personal and financial boundaries. This communication helped me to feel support outside my family and strengthen my confidence that borders are not a wall separating me from my loved ones, but a necessary foundation for a healthy relationship. In addition, I started making changes in my financial life. I have reviewed my contributions to pension funds and started to create a more sustainable contingency fund. This experience has highlighted to me the importance of financial independence and personal security. Finance, which previously seemed to be just one aspect of life, has now become a symbol of freedom and self-confidence. There was a particularly significant moment last week. I got a promotion at work, which was accompanied by a significant increase in salary. In the past, I might have felt obligated to share this news with my family and maybe even financially help them. But this time I quietly celebrated the event with a few close friends, feeling proud of my achievements. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty or pressured to share my successes with my family. This moment became for me a symbol of how far I have come on the path to independence and inner healing. As for Mia's trip to the prom, I recently learned from my aunt that our parents still sent her on a tour of California. Apparently, Mia enjoyed this trip, and although I periodically have thoughts that I was too strict in my decision, I try to remind myself that I was right to protect my borders. There were moments of doubt and sadness, especially during family events, which I was forced to miss due to my adopted no-contact policy. Mother's Day, which used to be an important date for our whole family, has become an especially difficult ordeal. Despite this, I keep reminding myself that this forced separation is necessary for my mental health and personal growth. I try not to give in to guilt, knowing that this distance allows me to regain the strength and independence that I have been looking for so long. One of the unexpected, but at the same time, positive results of this whole situation was that I became an assistant and support for my friends who also face financial problems in their families. Several people have come to me for advice on how to set boundaries and how to properly communicate with financially irresponsible family members. I am happy to share my experience, explain how important it is to defend your interests without losing dignity and inner balance. It seems that my personal path of struggle and healing helps not only me, but also others. This realization is incredibly satisfying. It has been some time since my last update, and during this period I have not only found inner harmony, but also helped other people figure out situations similar to mine. It was useful for me. Through helping others, I better understand and process my own experiences. In the process, I learned from my aunt that my parents' financial situation had deteriorated. As it turned out, they are facing some problems, and this was the result of their irresponsible use of loans. They continued to plan trips and spend money on entertainment, which led to tension between them. My father turned out to be upset that my mother was too involved in credit card fraud, and now they have to face the consequences of their actions. Although I sometimes feel a pang of guilt knowing that my parents are struggling right now, I don't forget to remind myself that their financial problems are no longer my burden. This process of awareness was not easy, but it was extremely necessary. Mia also shared her observations about how parents perceive the current situation. She said they still didn't fully understand why I reacted so harshly to their actions. For them, such behavior is a common part of family life, and they sincerely cannot understand why I attach so much importance to it. This misunderstanding is certainly frustrating, but at the same time it confirms that my decision to distance myself was the right one. This allows me to see the whole picture more clearly, recognize manipulation, and avoid further emotional wounds. Reflecting on my childhood and early adulthood, I begin to realize how deeply ingrained in our family are the patterns of financial and emotional manipulation that I used to consider the norm. This realization is certainly painful, but at the same time it brings liberation. I am learning to trust my feelings and experiences, no longer seeking the approval of my parents, who have been my main authority for many years. This path is not easy, but each new step gives me confidence and inner peace. Changes are also taking place in my personal life. I started dating again after a long period when family problems kept me from doing so. I recently met someone who not only understands my situation, but also shows incredible respect for my boundaries and values. Despite the fact that our relationship is still at an early stage, I feel ease and comfort in communicating with him. It's a pleasant feeling to be with someone who respects my principles of life and supports me in my quest for independence. I also began to think about significant changes in my life. One of these changes is the opportunity to return to school. I have always dreamed of getting a master's degree, but I put off this idea for fear that it would affect my ability to support my family financially. Now that I have freed myself from this pressure, I am seriously considering various programs and considering how this step can help me in the future. It's a nice feeling to realize that I can finally make decisions based on what will be useful and important for me, and not for anyone else. As I write these lines, I realize how much has changed in just a few months. The shock and anger that used to overwhelm me have now given way to a sense of calm determination. I no longer just react to the actions of my family, I actively shape my life, in which my decisions are based on my needs, goals, and aspirations. This path has given me not only inner peace, but also confidence that, despite everything that has happened, I will be fine. Now I feel stronger, more confident, and ready to face whatever the future brings. My life takes on a new, more conscious rhythm, and I am gradually building an environment of people who respect my boundaries and sincerely support me. I am becoming more and more aware of how important such changes are, and how they bring me closer to the life I really want for myself. The important news concerns my decision to move on professionally. I was accepted to the master's program in financial technology. This is exactly the direction that I have long wanted to study and which fits perfectly with my career aspirations. The program is located 5 hours away from my current place of residence, and although this means a change in my life, I look forward to the beginning of this new chapter with excitement. I start my studies in the fall, and a feeling of mixed emotions, a combination of excitement and some nervousness, accompanies me now. The decision to return to school was not an easy one. I had to leave a stable job, move to a new city, and take on student loans. But more importantly, this decision was my first real investment in myself and my future. I have often postponed such decisions out of fear that they might affect my family, but now that priorities have shifted, I make choices based on what is best for me. This feeling of incredible freedom and control over your own life is inspiring. Perhaps it was this realization that became the starting point for a deeper reflection on how my relationship with my parents was built. And so, a few months after the end of the period of absence of contacts, there were changes that I could not even imagine before. 3 months ago, my parents and I decided to try family therapy under the guidance of a professional psychologist. It was not an easy decision, and the first sessions turned out to be quite stressful. My parents took a defensive position, claiming that they had done nothing wrong. However, when we began to delve into more serious issues, old, long unresolved problems were revealed. It turned out that my father had lost a significant amount of money on unsuccessful investments, which he carefully hid not only from me, but also from my mother. It was this hidden financial difficulty that caused them to turn to my credit card as a way to maintain the illusion of stability. The revelation struck us all. My mom felt betrayed because her husband was hiding such important information from her. The father, in turn, felt deep shame for his financial mistakes, and his confession caused a storm of emotions. It became clear to me that the despair of the parents, which arose because of their financial difficulties, was not just the result of irresponsibility, but the result of fear and powerlessness before their own mistakes. Although their actions towards me remain unacceptable, understanding this context allowed me to see the deeper motives of their behavior and understand that their inner struggle was hidden behind their external coldness and indifference. Under the guidance of a therapist, we began to discuss these deep problems and eliminate the accumulated resentment step by step. By the end of one of the sessions, my parents sincerely apologized to me for their actions. It was a difficult and emotional confession, which was clearly not easy for them, but I feel that it was a turning point in our relationship. We agreed to continue our monthly family therapy sessions. The path to healing remains long and difficult, but I see that each such step is important for restoring trust and mutual understanding in our family. I am cautiously optimistic about the progress we can make together. Rebuilding relationships and establishing healthy boundaries takes time and patience, but I hope this process will lead to a more harmonious and honest relationship. I am especially happy about the changes in communication with my sister Mia. She's really been changing lately. Since my sister Mia started working full-time and moved into her own apartment, our relationship has changed markedly. Now we communicate much more often, and, most surprisingly for me, for the first time I feel that I really get to know her as an adult woman, independent and ready to take responsibility for her life. This feeling of a new stage in our relationship brings joy and pride. Recently, she even asked me for advice on budgeting and saving methods, an event that became a real milestone in our mutual understanding. For both of us, this step symbolizes something more. This is a sign that we are beginning to perceive each other not only as members of the same family, but also as equal adults. On the personal front, my relationship with Sarah, the woman I mentioned earlier, is developing just wonderfully. Our feelings gradually developed into something really special, and I feel that I find in her not only a life partner, but also a real ally. She has been incredibly supportive of my decision to return to school, even though it means that we will have to maintain a long-distance relationship for a while. Sarah, with her own experience in setting boundaries with family, has proved to be an invaluable source of support and understanding for me. She shares my values and helps me strengthen my confidence that my decisions regarding the future are correct. From a financial point of view, I am in a stable and strong position. The promotion I received some time ago turned out to be incredibly useful. It helped me allocate a significant amount for the upcoming move and cover part of the costs of graduate school. My financial independence has become for me a source of not only material confidence, but also peace of mind. I've also learned to be more vigilant about protecting my financial information, especially from relatives who don't always understand the importance of boundaries. I recently had to turn down a distant relative who was trying to convince me to sign up for a significant loan commitment. It was not an easy decision, but I was firm in my refusal, and this experience only strengthened my determination to maintain strong personal boundaries. In the process of preparing for this new chapter of my life, I can't help but remember that first shocking phone call from my mother that started this whole story. At the time, I was stunned and filled with anger that the credit card I had given my family and trusted caused my financial problems. However, the intense emotions I felt at that time gradually subsided, giving way to a new sense of strength and self-confidence. I realized that this painful experience had taught me a lot. First of all, the importance of establishing and maintaining boundaries, even with the closest people. I realized that prioritizing my own well-being and future is not selfishness, but a necessary act of self-preservation. And a real family, whether it is connected by blood or chosen by heart, will always respect your boundaries and support your growth. Looking back on the path I have traveled, I feel deeply grateful to everyone who followed my story and supported me through difficult times. Your words have become a source of strength and clarity for me when I have faced the most difficult moments. For those who may be experiencing similar problems in their families, I want to say, you can get out of such situations stronger and wiser. Yes, it's not easy, but the possible fruits, inner peace, self-respect and a sense of control over your own life, are worth it. Now, as I pack up my new apartment, prepare for this exciting adventure and look ahead, I am overwhelmed with a sense of excitement and opportunity. It's a feeling I haven't experienced in years, and I'm proud of how far I've come. I can't wait to find out what the future holds for me, because I am full of energy and ready to accept whatever it brings.